Dear God, that was awful. Welcome back, everyone, to It's Cool Us Too, where Nicole seems to be having some sort of issue with her
Moment.
throat. I don't know what's going on.
No, there's just a really deep Sunday scaries
Sort of sigh
sigh,
mixed
but
with a
also
little croakiness.
strain of sorts.
Oh, I just had a bit of a throat burp there. So we're both
You
doing really well.
did, guys. Let me just say, I had a crash out this week. It wasn't great. It wasn't ideal. It was deep,
It was sad.
and I was very sad. Had a really sad.
Was it Wednesday?
Yeah, I think it was Wednesday.
Cole called me and I was like still in bed because I was off this past week. So I think it was like 9.
Yeah,
And no, so you texted me being like, hey, do you have a second to chat? And I thought it was going to be about the podcast, like just
yeah,
about logistics about the podcast.
yeah. And I jump on
And
sobbing.
I jump on FaceTime and she's like sobbing. And I was like, oh my God, what's
Yeah.
happened?
Yes. And while the nature of that crash out was like existential dread and the world is ending and classic millennial single girl meltdown, um, came back real quick the second I got my period. I was like, everything makes sense.
What is,
Everything makes sense.
how do we not realize
I knew I
every
was getting my
single month?
period, but I haven't had that bad of a crash out in a while. And um, yeah, it was just like the fog lifted, the veil lifted the
Yeah.
second I was like, oh no, yeah, okay, that's what's happening. So, if you're feeling emotionally vulnerable this week, that's okay. You're allowed to. And
Also,
like,
Mercury was in
just,
retrograde.
it wasn't.
There was something going on with the new moon or the old
Yes,
moon.
a moon.
Astrology.
Look it up. But just like check your cycle tracking apps because I guarantee you there's some underlying reason that's making you crazy.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I'll just give my little update without you even prompting me for it because I'm just on a yap cycle today.
Do it.
So I was in Calgary last week. It was great. I love Calgary. It's such a cool city.
Mm.
Um, we were there with all our partners and had a really fun few days in the city. And then I came back and I've had some good like life admin resorting because things are about to get a little hectic around here. There is a lot happening in a very short amount of time over the next few
Hmm.
weeks. One of those things, guys, friends of the pod, I'm going whale watching. This is huge.
Yeah, this is your
My Super Bowl.
that's what I was trying to remember, but I couldn't remember what the word for Super Bowl
We're
was.
such girls.
What did I say
I
today? I was at a bridal shower. Sorry to interrupt you. I was at a bridal shower and this girl was like, "Yeah, I couldn't go to this dinner because they weren't playing the Leafs game at the dinner." And I was like, "Oh, yeah. Oh, so sorry about, you know, what happened." And she's like, "Well, I don't personally know them." And I was like, "Yeah, I just don't know anything about
It's like I don't know how
hockey."
involved you are, so people will take
Yeah.
it very personally. You
And
know,
she was
you
like,
you treaded carefully.
"Okay. Okay." And I was like, "I haven't been avoiding the Leafs, but I haven't been engaging." She's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay." Anyways, sorry, while watching
Yeah.
your Super Bowl.
Anyways, I'm just beside myself. My colleague LP has already told me he's going to take many videos of me. He's like, "Oh God, you're going to cry, aren't you?" I'm like, "Most definitely, I'm going to cry. This is going to be
Who are you whale
all."
watching with?
Okay, so I do have to keep it somewhat cool
Yeah, that's
because
what
it's
I
my
was
entire
thinking.
board, and then the board of one of my partner
Yeah.
associations. So like, I'm gonna have to be very discreet about my emotions.
Can you wear a hood?
So
Can you wear
I'm going to
sunglasses?
have to, Megan. I'm gonna go full incognito at this point.
Nicole, why do you have so much water on your face?
The waves, the
The waves
waves.
are getting me.
Um, yeah. So I'm so excited for this. We've got a wedding coming up.
One of our friends is getting married.
So fun.
Emily, she was on the pod. She's getting married
Yes.
in a couple weeks. honestly, like I just can't believe it. It's coming up
That's
so
so
fast.
exciting. So
Yeah.
exciting. We're
Yes.
going to the chapel
And I
wedding.
just found out that I'm going to be emceeing the wedding.
I love this. I'm
And
so excited.
that is my Super Bowl.
I'm so excited for you
Yeah.
because you're gonna do so good.
I'm I I'm feeling a lot of things about it. I'm feeling
Yeah.
nervous. I'm feeling excited. I'm feeling I already said nervous. I'm feeling quite anxious. I'm feeling, you know, when it's one of your closest friends and you're emceeing their wedding, you're like, I gotta,
The
I
stakes
gotta
are high.
bring the heat.
Yeah.
The heat? You know what I mean?
You gotta bring it.
Bring
We're
it.
still deciding what it is, but you're going to bring something.
I'm in the memory collection
Yes.
zone. Um, and I'm just going to assume that everyone wants to hear about all of the wonderful moments of our shared relationship.
It's basically gonna be an ode to Emily.
There'll be some Dimitri sprinkled in there.
Yes. But basically an ode to Emily.
Yeah, basically.
Oh,
Oh
how are
man,
you? You have an update to give us in terms of
I do.
the man in Prince Edward County.
I do. So my friend was in town from London. We had a really good time. I needed proper detox. I ate and drank my way through Prince Edward County. Multiple wineries and breweries were visited. And then all of Maddie Matheson's establishments in Toronto were also visited. I went to Prime Seafood Palace for the first time ever. I actually, yeah, sorry. I will tell the story about Rick, but while I'm on Prime Seafood Palace, so we got there and I'd made the reservation and we sat down at like just like this two top. It's gorgeous in there. And then the server came over and was like, "Oh wow, we can see that you've been to like every single Maddie Matheson restaurant." And I was like, "How did you know?"
How?
And she was like, "Well, your email is attached to like all of the reservations that you've made." So she's like, "You've been to Rizzo's? Like what?" I was like, "Yeah, we rented out the private dining room for my birthday. Come on." So she was like, "Do you guys want to take a big booth? Like we just had a cancellation for a party of 6. Like, do you guys want the booth?" And so we sat in this like baller as fuck booth at Prime Seafood
Nice.
Palace. It was amazing. Would highly recommend. Okay. Another baller experience was the private winery and brewery tour that we went on in Prince Edward County. So,
Wait,
man,
hold up. Before you get into this, do you think you're going to get an email from Maddie?
I'm surprised Maddie himself hasn't personally reached out on Instagram.
Shocking, truly.
It's crazy. But you know
Do
what?
better.
I still love him. Um,
Wow.
yes.
Sorry, as you
So
were.
Rick and Betty, for anyone who hasn't listened to this particular episode of the podcast where I was talking about their tour company, they're locals to the Prince Edward County region. Both retired school bus drivers, although I've learned that Betty does work part-time sometimes to do some driving. I didn't get to meet Betty. It was only Rick. And he was quite a character. He he was really funny. So he was basically sort of testing us. He took us to Hinterland, which is a winery that's really well known for their like sparkling wines. And so we started there. And then we came out like pretty soon after. We did like a little tasting flight. And he was like, "Not your vibe, huh?" And we were like, "Oh, like it was okay." And he's like, "You guys like stuff that's off the beaten path." So he took us to some like proper local places. For anyone who knows Prince Edward County, he took us to a place called Garage Time, which is a brewery that's like in someone's home. I was like, "Oh my God, this is crazy." It's like, so there's like a little garage that's like attached to the way a garage is attached, but he's
Yeah.
converted like all of it into a brewery. And there was like these local guys sitting there. And I was telling a woman at a shop in Prince Edward County, I was like, "Oh, our tour guide took us to Garage Time." She's like, "What? That's insane." She's like, "People don't take non-locals to Garage Time." I was like, "Well, Rick trusted us and believed in us."
And you've been to Prince Edward County enough. You're
Yeah.
basically a local.
I don't know. I don't know if that's true. Um, but no, it was really great. The next day was a little challenging given the amount of alcohol consumed. And I'm ready for a detox, but it was a good vacay.
So, how many stars would you give Rick?
Ooh, I
Or you know
think
what?
like
Is he on your buy list? Like, not that you would buy Rick, but like buy the tour. Is he on your like do or
yes.
don't
I
list?
would say it's like well worth it. I think he cared so much about like how much we were liking each place. I would say he was almost too invested in our happiness. Like he was like, and we're going to it and we're hitting another spot and another spot. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know how many other spots
I
my
have in
liver
me.
has in me. Um, One place I will say you have to go to Slake if you're going to Prince Edward County. It's this like unbelievable brewery. I think it's pretty new, but it's sort of like up on a cliff and you can overlook the whole county and it's like floor to ceiling windows. It's gorgeous. So he took us there as our last stop, which is really nice.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I expect a URL of sorts in the newsletter.
Rick doesn't have a website.
It's a slate, or whatever it's
Oh,
called.
Slake, yeah.
Well, how did you find Rick if he doesn't have a website?
From a lot of calling people.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I'll be honest, I got actually quite nervous before Rick arrived. And my friend was like, "Why do you seem so jittery?" I was like, "We don't know anything about this guy."
And we're
Like,
about to get in his
I'm
car
starting to feel
willingly.
a little scared. My friend was just like, "Okay, that's fine. You'll be fine." And we were fine. He was lovely.
Crazy.
Difficult transition because,
We really should have ended with my crash out this week, which would have
yeah, we
made
should
more
have.
sense into today's episode, which is
Yeah.
all around rules and how they're not real.
Yeah. And like the rules that we, as like women in our mid 30s, probably internalized in the like late 90s, early 2000s, like when we were really like sponges soaking up all of the, I don't know, trashy magazines and what we thought were like the right things to be doing. We kind of wanted to check in on like why a lot of the rules that we learned or internalized are not actually true anymore.
They're not. And if you're having a similar crash out because of astrology, let this be the thing to make you feel a little bit better. So, why don't we start with the number one? You need to be married and have everything sorted out by the time you're 30.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Oh, well, no. Bullshit. I didn't mean yes.
Yes, you must have it all figured out. Imagine that's the episode. We're all fucked. But like,
No.
it really leans into, and you put this in the notes here where it's like, your eggs are dying. And
Mm,
like, that to me is more what stresses me out than like the getting married part does.
I think that's the subtext here too, right? Is that marriage needs to happen before you have a kid. Um, that
Which
was
is
what
another rule.
I believed to be true. I mean, I was raised in Canada where the majority, like my parents got married. All of my friends' parents got married before they had kids. Um, Definitely not something you need to do.
Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like we're so instilled with this fear that you have to have everything figured out and that there's this basically clock of doom that is going to kill us all. And
Mm,
the reality is you're going to be fine no matter what. At least that's what ChatGPT tells me every day. Um, Similar vein, you should own a home by your early 30s.
I mean, that's an infuriating rule. And I say that as someone who had the benefit of my parents' help in owning a condo.
Yeah.
Not by my early 30s, like it was sort of mid 30s for me, but that is like pretty much impossible for most people these
Yeah. In
days.
this economy,
Yeah.
I swear to God, between like, if I was to buy my condo and between the mortgage, the condo fees, property tax, insurance, I'd be like it's way more affordable for me to be renting right now than buying.
Yeah. And it like, yeah, I guess we come at it from two different angles, right? Because you don't own a condo. That's what it feels like I'm saying. But honestly, before I owned a home, I wasn't really convinced that it was something I wanted. Like I was like, basically, if I hadn't had the option of having my parents help with the down payment, I
Yeah.
don't think that this is something I would have prioritized. Like I think that I would have continued to rent,
Yeah.
and prioritized a lot of other types of investing for my future. And also I would have prioritized like, I don't think this is smart, but I would have prioritized like
Experiences.
experiences and like going on lots more travel, all of that stuff. Because while I'm not house poor, my mortgage is not small and the condo fees are not small either. And you're right, it does completely add up. So yeah, it's a tricky one. Um, I mean, like, do you think if you could right now, you would buy?
I think for me, the thing that I'm not sure of is where I'd want to be,
Yeah, fair.
right? Like, what do I want to, where do I want to buy? Where do I want to live? And I think if I had a partner, if I had maybe more impending, um, like I'm gonna have a kid in the next few months kind of thing, or like I'm gonna
Right.
start trying kind of thing, that would change things dramatically for me. But that's not really where my head's at right now. Um, and so it doesn't, I don't feel the need
Yeah.
unless I get kicked out.
So you think
So
if
we'll see.
you got kicked out, you would try to buy?
I might like take a beat for like a few months. Like
Yeah.
I love my mom. Like I probably go to my mom's for like 2 or 3 months, just like
Yeah,
squirrel away some stuff and then reassess from there.
that's fair.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
on the topic of money, I think this idea of like, not that money needs to be something that people talk about, but I just remember growing up, this sort of underlying rule of, you never talk about money. It's really rude.
And it's
Um,
never something specifically with women. Like when you're raised as a girl,
mm,
it's not something you're taught or taught that like is even in your wheelhouse that you need to think about, but you're told to be like an independent woman, but like the tools in which to do that aren't necessarily as laid out or as common as it would be for men.
yeah, agreed. I agree. And I think sort of to that point too, this idea of like, I think it's so important for women to talk about money with their
Like we've had
friends.
conversations
Yeah.
about it before and it's uncomfortable to bring up and you're like, wait, like I feel like I'm behind or like I don't know what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
And the reality is the conversations I've had with my girlfriends about money have been some of the things that have made me feel like so much more together and like sorted.
Mm,
Or it's opened my eyes to something maybe I wasn't even seeing because again, that's just not something that you're taught.
yeah. Yeah. And I think there's almost a thread there too of, be happy with what you have and don't ask for too much or don't be too much. And that's often something that people say to women, maybe more than
Be
men, or that's my
grateful.
be grateful. That's my
Yeah,
assessment. And I think that that translates into money too. It
totally
comes back to like men apply for any job that they think they might be remotely capable of, but
qualified
women apply
for.
for like 10% of those jobs. So,
Yeah. And I think on that vein too, like when it comes to salary disclosures,
mm,
I feel like this is one of the most important things that you need to be talking about with your friends to understand where you sit in the market. And for similar jobs, like you and I have had conversations, disclosure, you make, I would say, a good chunk more than I do in both marketing, but you're in Toronto, I'm in Ottawa, different markets. I also work for a not for profit.
yeah.
So like there's things in consideration there, but it's also just good to have those conversations and lay out your salaries because you can then be like, wait a second, should I be making more? Or wait, am I making a good salary right now? Because then it also changes your perception of honestly your job satisfaction, if you feel like you're
Yeah.
being compensated fairly or unfairly.
Yeah. And looking at it too, not just as a number of like, this is what my annual salary is, but what is the entire package that you're
Package.
being offered? Because like I, for instance, like one of the things I love about my company is I have unlimited vacation. I think people always say like unlimited vacation is a bit of a like I think it used to be a bit of a cop out. Like it would be like people are like, you have unlimited vacation. And then I worked for these tiny startups where you could never take time off. But I do think it's really important. And that is an added benefit that I consider when I think about my total compensation, or like RSP matching or, you know, whatever it is that you have. So, yeah, it's an
Or
important
like
conversation.
totally. And I think kind of along the same thread, we were told this idea that if you do well in high school, you go to university, you get a good education, you get the job, you stay in it, and like that'll be sufficient.
Yeah.
And the reality is for two things. One, corporate culture is soul sucking in a lot of ways. If you work with me, no, you don't. This isn't about my
This
job
isn't about
specifically,
me.
but like this is why I love the podcast so much because it's such a nice creative outlet for the two of us to sink our teeth into something that doesn't feel necessary. It's something that we actively choose every day.
Yeah.
And beyond that, the reality that most people can get ahead just working their corporate job, like their 9 to 5 in today's economy. That's not even to say that if you have like student debt or you went into debt to go to school or things like that, it's just not realistic anymore. And that dream that we were almost fed in high school never manifested. And
Mm,
so then you have an entire generation of people who are so disenfranchised with the way our economy is set up. There are some people that are just like, F it, I'm going to do my own thing and are super entrepreneurial and are taking big risks and kind of putting it all on the table. But there are other people that just feel, I don't really know a better word to say this, but like disenfranchised. And that's where I think it leads to, for a lot of men, especially the like lonely man epidemic, where what they
mm,
were promised hasn't come to fruition and they just feel like they can never get ahead.
yeah. I think when we look at the generation below us or like Gen Z, they just think a lot more broadly about, there's two things I'm trying to say. I don't even know if they're related. They think more broadly about what career could look like. And it doesn't have to be one thing, it could be multiple
They're
things.
multi like passionate,
Yeah, like multiple revenue
multi hyphen.
streams.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like they're like, okay, cool, I could do this and then do this and then do this, as opposed to like, here's my focus and this is what I'm going to do. And the other rule, or the other sort of not lie that we were fed, but the rule that doesn't really apply anymore is this idea that like your career has to be where you get the majority of your energy or where your passion needs to go. Um, and that's an interesting one because I think there's like my dad's generation where they were like, it doesn't really matter if you like it. Like my dad was, I mean, I'm only thinking really of my dad and his work career, but he's like, I figured out what I was good at.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just did that thing to the highest level that I could. And and I'm like, to some extent, I'm steeped in that. um, why are you laughing?
Downtown Toronto
Oh,
sounds.
sorry. Yeah, yeah. I was like, are you laughing because I'm
No.
that person? Um, but no, like I'm sort of steeped in that, and that's like how I was raised. But I also think our generation is more open to the idea that like, sure, you can do that, but it also doesn't need to just be one career. Do you sort of get what I'm trying to say? It's like,
Well, you don't stay at a career anymore for 30 years, right? Like that
yes,
doesn't
exactly.
happen. The other thing too is like I don't think I feel very passionate that what I spend the majority of my time, I have to enjoy,
Yeah,
right? Like I don't just look at my job as a job. I think there's many people that do, and that's totally okay. Teach their own.
yeah.
But I want to enjoy or feel fulfilled in some way by my job. That said, I've recognized more and more over the last few years that my job in itself is not going to bring me fulfillment. So, nor allow me to really reach the goals that I want to have. So,
Mm,
having other projects, hobbies, interests side hustles for what you will. Like, that is really the new world that we live in, and operating solely between your 9 to 5 and then your home life. I just don't see being the reality anymore. And if I was to make a bet, I would say that the way that most corporate structures are going to change over the next few years, because I think we're about to see some pretty big, like, the States have seen a lot of like layoffs, specifically in
Mm-hmm.
public service. Ottawa, I believe, is about to see a pretty large um, flooding of talent into the market because of cuts within the federal government. Like, people are going to look at multiple kind of tiles, I guess, to create their mosaic of what their day to day
Yeah.
looks like. And it's not going to be just a 9 to 5 anymore. You're going to have your, your 7 to 10, and then your 10 to 2, and then your 2 to 7. Like, you're going to have multiple jobs, I believe. Over the next 10 years, I think more and more people will have careers that look like that.
That sounds exhausting, but could be exhilarating if you had the right sort of mix.
It depends if you're coming from a place of like desperation in doing it, or if you're coming at it from
Yeah.
like you're chasing something that feels worthwhile.
Yeah, that's fair. This is making me think too about just thinking about the differences between our parents' generation and where we're at now. Like the rules, this rule or this idea of like your friends becoming more like sideline characters in your life in your 30s and 40s. Not that you don't have friends, but it's all about like the family and like the nuclear family, so to speak.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, at least for us, my friends are like the center of my world, obviously outside of family because we're not in relationships or we're not married with kids or, whatever it is. So I think that's a huge difference for me is I think at 30, I expected to be in a position where like maybe my friends become like less present on a day-to-day basis.
Mm.
And now I'm like, nope, that never happened. Like they're still my ride or dies.
Yeah, and I think you and I are so different in that sense with like the realities around us in our day to day lives. Like, my friends
Mm,
here, I am sideline character. Doesn't mean I'm not important, but the majority of
fair.
my friends here in Ottawa are moms, are married. My sister's about to be a mom. That part of my crash out on Wednesday was like, I'm going to become less important to you.
Yeah.
Like, and she's like, Nicole, she's like, it's not a hierarchy. I'm like, we have a baby. Like, I'm like, but no, you have like a baby to take care
Yeah.
of, and to like, you're keeping a little human alive, and you're also gonna be postpartum, and you're gonna, and I'm so excited for that. But the reality is, like, there's only so much time to give around, and I don't think people are willing to admit that that's a feeling that they have because it looks selfish
Yeah.
or
No,
it
that's
looks
fair.
self-indulgent. But like, I'm so close to my sister, and it was just kind of in the whirl of emotions that I had this week was something that I just felt so deeply, and almost made me panic in a way. Because I've seen it happen with like other friends, and with like her, it's like, whoa, wait. And again, it's separate from like my excitement. 'Cause how excited. Basically, the room beside the baby's room is my room
Yeah.
at this point. Like, I'm so excited for this baby. I'm so excited for my sister and her husband. Like, that is a separate issue. But there's a grief that comes with it too, that you realize that you're moving down the bench.
Yeah. And I think you're spot on there. Like our day to day looks really different because of where the majority of our friends that live in sort of the same
Yeah, area.
place as we do, or as each of us does, the makeup looks really different. So I think that's a very fair point. For me, my experience is like it hasn't felt vastly different yet.
Yeah.
Um, in some situations, yes, of course, like they've had kids or moved out of the city, and so it is slightly different for me. But yeah, I think that's really fair, and it is a reality.
Yeah, and I apologize if I made it seem like your experience, or if I was like devaluing your experience in this.
No, 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 not at all.
Okay.
I think it's just a really good point that like whereas that rule for me hasn't felt applicable, like to you it has been. So
Hmm.
it's just different experiences.
My therapist knows all about it. Um, so you and I are both dating.
Yeah.
We're head first into all of this.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of rules I think we were fed that we've realized or are realizing maybe that they don't hold true. And one of them, which we talked about before the podcast, was if he wanted to, he would.
Hmm.
And I think that that's one that you're just fed for so long, being like, it's black and white. Like, yeah, if he wanted to, he would. And the reality is, in the situations maybe that we're finding ourselves in, that isn't necessarily Bible at this
I also
point.
think it can just get so misconstrued of like
Totally.
it becomes like if he wanted to text you now, he would. If he wanted to take you on a date this week, he would. Like,
Which assumes for nothing else going on in that person's
yeah.
life.
And then also we want them to have full lives, right? I don't want to date
Mm-hmm.
somebody who doesn't have friends or plans or like things going on in their life. So it's like it almost becomes like what we're asking for and what we actually want are at
Are two different
odds
things.
with one
Yeah.
another. Um yeah, I don't know. I'm still like in the murky bits of like because I do want someone to take control of a dating situation
You
and
want to
be
be
like,
pursued.
I want to be pursued,
Yeah.
but I also want to be realistic about like in the early stages of going on dates with people, you're an option. You're not
The
like
choice.
the choice. And so
Oh, that
I
hurt
know that
so.
did hurt. Oh, it's like it made me think of oh shoot. What's the movie? He's just not that into you.
Yeah.
It's like you are not the exception, you're the rule. Like and you almost have to go into it with this mindset of like he's still an option to me. I'm still an option to
Totally.
him. Um I can't expect too much, but I also don't want to accept too little. So, anyways, it's tough.
It's a hard balance to
Yeah.
achieve,
I,
honestly.
I was at M's bridal shower today and I was sitting next to two women who are married with kids. And I was like, talk to me about your husband's texting, like in the early stages of your dating. And they were like, why are you asking me this? Like, what a very
You're like,
specific
I'm just
question.
doing some field work.
Yeah.
Can't a girl, like,
And I was like, well, I'm talking to this guy and he texts me every few days and I'll text him back and then like will be a few more days and I was like, I don't know. I'm just like, what does it mean? And they were like, that sounds pretty normal. I was like, oh,
and you're like, oh.
okay, I'm really overthinking this. It's like one of those things. It's like, am I expecting too much? Ooh, I don't know.
I don't know. I think especially too, I'm coming off of some love bombing experiences, which is just like recalibrating myself after that. Because again, I fall for a love bomber every time. I'm like, I get it. I'm great.
Mm,
I understand you would be
yeah,
this infatuated with me. It's just not the
I'm
healthiest of
amazing.
things. um, I think too, and this is probably more for women who grew up in the 90s and the early aughts, where you were just told to be chill, be low maintenance, don't be too much, just, you know, just mold yourself into a little chameleon based on the situation, adjust the temperature, adjust yourself to the temperature of the room kind of that you're in. And I think for a lot of millennial women, and maybe men too, I don't know, you end up just recognizing that as you grow up, you don't really know who you are because
Yeah,
you have basically adjusted yourself so much so often that who you are at your core, I think that's why for me anyways, in my 20s, and into my like early 30s, there was a lot of identity work I had to figure out. Like I had to do a lot of self-reflection of what do I actually like, what do I not like? Who who am I? What are the things that actually matter to me? And I have such vivid memories of even being back in like elementary school and being like kind of teased and almost coming up with ways to be more likable.
mm,
And when you're young, like I'm talking like 10, 11, 12, that shit sticks with you.
yeah,
And it's really hard to unlearn. And so that's why I feel like at this point in my life, there's things that I just I'm trying to not, like, I'll use my love of whales as an example and
Oh
like
my
bear with me for a
God.
second. I'm so passionate about the things that I love and care about, and I'm so vocal about it and so loud about it because for so long I didn't think I could be. And so reclaiming the things
Yeah.
that bring me joy and feel special and unique and really light me up is something I feel like almost now I over dive into because I didn't feel like I was able to for so long.
Yeah. Yeah. And you were, yeah, always being worried too of like,
I like what people think of you, and like I'm a perfectionist and a people pleaser. We're working on those things, but you really just, I only feel in the last few years I've been able to start becoming me unapologetically. And that stems from those rules of, well, don't be too much and don't be too loud and, you know, don't have too many opinions and, all these
and
other
don't have the
things.
wrong opinions.
And don't have the wrong opinion. And, it's it's a really dangerous thing. And I just hope that if anyone else is in like similar situations or grew up in the similar kind of place, that you just spend the time to really try to figure yourself out again and like find the things that light you up,
Yeah.
even if they're ocean bound mammals.
That's a pull clip if I've ever
Heard
heard one.
one? Yeah.
This makes me think too of like the beauty ideals, or what it meant to feel pretty and attractive when we were millennials, which like that's a whole other episode. And we don't
We
like there's
should do a body image episode again.
yes, I agree. I would really like to because I also think we're at a very interesting time given the rise of
Yeah.
Ozempic and like there's sort of a move more back towards thinness. Anyways, so I do think we should do an episode on that. So we'll put a pin in that slightly. But one thing that happened like recently, I was at my friend Bridget's house and I was putting on makeup and her daughter is 2 and she was so excited when she saw my makeup. She was like, oh my gosh, can I put this on? And I kind of like looked at Bridget and she was like, yeah, if she wants to, like, I don't care. I was like, okay, cool. So she's like playing with it, she's like putting the blush on her cheeks and everything. She was just like fascinated. And
Yeah.
she said like, Auntie Megsy, like, why are you putting on makeup? And without really thinking, I was doing my foundation and I said, because I wanted to feel pretty. And I like didn't think about it at all. And then Bridget sort of chimed in and she said, but Bromley, what Auntie Megsy means is she wants to feel fancy. We're pretty every day. So, you don't need
Cry.
to be wearing makeup to feel pretty. And it was like such an unlock for me of this like ingrained rule, this idea that you have to be wearing makeup to be pretty or to feel pretty or like, and it wasn't, at least I wasn't saying like I want people to perceive me as pretty. Like I really did mean like in my world I associate that with like feeling more attractive.
Yeah.
But it was a really interesting like, oh wow, I internalized this thing very young that like if you want to feel pretty or attractive then you need to have makeup on.
I have to also give so much credit to, I'll say moms in general, but I'm going to specifically shout out our friends who are raising young women and little girls because the way I see them parent these little
Unbelievable.
girls and the messaging they're instilling in them is so, it's like just so healing to like your inner child,
Yeah.
in so many ways. And it's so true because until you start explaining it to a little kid, you don't maybe recognize how damaging some of this
Yeah.
messaging really is.
No. And it's something that we as people who are single, like I definitely, or sorry, not single, people who don't have children, um, it's not something that I think about day in and day out. I am aware of what I might be instilling in my friends' kids. So I am very conscious of like making sure that I come correct, so to speak, and that I'm
Yeah,
not saying something flippant without thinking it through. But that was just such a weird
that's
experience to be like,
crazy.
ooh, and like, what does that say about, the rules we were taught when we were her
Yeah.
age?
Oh man, that was,
Take you down memory
yeah,
lane.
it did a little bit. Crazy. Oh my God. Um,
We could go all day, I think, but should we wrap up with one around identity?
yeah. There's one that I want to, why don't I talk about one and you talk about one?
Okay.
So the one that I uh, really like in here is don't talk about mental health. It's private.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the most damaging things that you can do. I think if you have mental health problems or you struggle with anxiety, depression, or any other form of mental health, because it comes in so many different forms and to varying degrees, if you are comfortable talking about it, you have a responsibility to talk about it. Because I guarantee you, there are so many people out there that you're going to make feel less alone. Like, even for myself, mental health has always been a conversation I've been able to have in my family. And it was never something I felt shame over. And I think that is something that has allowed me to talk so openly and so freely on like our podcast or even in my work. Like I talk to my team about mental health at least once a month. And I check in with them to make sure that they're well. Because while they're there to do a job at the end of the day, I also want to make sure that they're healthy. And that's not just physical health, that's mental health.
Mm,
And I normalize and make it safe for them to be able to come to me. So not like when they're anything deep or traumatic or anything like that, but I want them to tell me, Nicole, I'm overwhelmed right now with X, Y, and Z. I'm feeling anxious about this project, or I'm having a really hard time at home. I need a little bit of slack taken off of my workload. Can you work with me on this? And I do that by almost telling them how I'm feeling, not in a way that it's their burden to carry and something that is like unprofessional where I'm like using it as an excuse for not doing things, but I'm really transparent about, okay, this has me feeling this way right now. And I'm creating that safe space for them at the same time.
yeah, I agree. I think we're definitely getting there in terms of being more open. For me, my family has gotten so much better about talking about mental health, and I do the same
Yeah,
thing. You model it at your work. Like I'm really open if I'm having a day that I'm anxious or whatever. And sometimes also, sorry, this is a bit of a tangent, but sometimes on the time you're feeling anxious, if you're someone who suffers with anxiety, like when you are anxious, sometimes is the hardest time to say that you're feeling anxious. At least that's how I experience it. So don't feel like you have to be like if you're like, I need a mental health day and you need to take the day off. And then you can, if you want to talk about it after the fact, after you've started to regain some of like, I think of it like
totally.
who I am and my confidence. Once I've regained those things, you can do it after. Like, I don't mean you need to talk about it in the moment because sometimes that's impossible. So give yourself some grace on that. But yeah, my family has gotten a lot better talking about mental health because my brother suffers with addiction. So, like, even talking about that has also
Yeah,
been, and I don't think as a society we're as far along as we are with, and not that they're not, they are very related, but they are distinct things. And I think right now there's still more stigma around addiction than there is for anxiety and
100%.
depression. So yeah, I think that one definitely hit me as well. I think the other one that I actually wrote down just like while we were chatting is you'll be happiest when you have kids. And I don't know if that's something that like anyone ever said to me. It was like a vibe that I got. Like it was
You
this
picked up.
yeah, that I picked up. Like I think it was this idea of like everything that you're doing in your life is a march towards this ideal like family structure. Then you have your kids and then it's going to be like blissful.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're going to have that was sort of what romantic comedies, what like everyone sort of a lot of the media we consumed was about that. And it was so funny, and I'm not going to say who it was because I don't want to out this person, but I was at this bridal shower today and I was chatting to someone who was talking about making new friends as a mom. And she was saying what's really interesting is I go to these like book clubs or, you know, hangouts with other moms, and all they talk about is how much they dislike their husband. And
Ooh.
I was like, oh my God, wow. And she's like, yeah, it's really interesting. Like, I feel like there's so many moms who are struggling with their mental health and struggling with their marriages, and like no one's talking about it, like in like they're not talking about it with their spouse, and they just seem so like frustrated and upset. And I was like, that's my worst nightmare. That's literally my
Truly.
worst nightmare, because I'm not, and this is one small subset of the population. Like, who knows if that's actually true? But it did really make me reflect on this idea that nothing is certain. Just because you get married and have kids and you're sort of, in a financially secure job, like that doesn't mean that all of a sudden you're happy. Um, it can make you happier, maybe, but there's still a lot of work you need to do from an identity perspective to stay happy,
Well,
and a
it's also,
relationship perspective.
and like no relationship, no baby is ever
Yeah.
going to make you whole. You have to find that wholeness on your own and then look at partnership and motherhood and other relationships or other add-ons as just that.
Yeah.
Man,
Whew.
we
We
got
said this
deep in
was,
this
yeah, we said
episode.
this was going to be like a short
A
one,
quickie.
but this was
We
great.
have
I loved it.
opinions. Shocking.
To the community, I'm sorry that the May newsletter is not out yet. That's my bad. Actually, by the time you're listening to this, it might be.
Do you want me to edit
So
this out?
edit it out.
No, I'm going to leave it in now. People like the realness. They like the unedited versions
It
of
was a
us. Yeah.
busy old week. I was too busy gallivanting around the city.
To be fair, I just sent you my stuff today.
I wasn't going to out you, but thanks for saying that.
Yeah, this is not just on you. Like,
It's both
I
of
just
us.
sent you my stuff today. You're fine. All right, guys, take care, and we will see you next week.
See you
We
next
love you.
week. Love you. Bye.